And I love the industry and I love what I do. But when you start really young, I think it's kind of healthy to have some time away.
Yeah, I would say.
Because it's just a constant, when you're in you've never really had that sort of regular life constant if you start that young.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to have at some point.
I didn't know you started so young. Yeah. I mean, I think I probably would have gone absolutely insane. I'm a very immature person. Right. And if, I didn't get my first big thing, Smallville, till I was like 27 or something.
Yeah.
But that was like the big break. And
I
think if that hit me when I was 9 or 10 or even 15, 18, I would lose my mind. I wouldn't know what to do. I didn't have the maturity. I didn't have the wherewithal. I probably would have gotten in some trouble.
Yeah.
And
all of those things. I think I've ticked every box that you just mentioned, but
Really?
Yeah, sure. It's inevitable. I mean, it's inescapable. And it's okay. There's ways of getting through all that, but it's inescapable. It's as a director, I've worked with kids a lot, and I always have. And I talk to a lot of moms, they're always like, what should we do? Like, you went through it. And I was like, well, you could just pull them out.
Yeah, right.
It's
and
like,
you're serious.
That's the safest thing you could do is you could pull them out. But if you're going to keep them in, then you got to be all over it because it's a lot. For kids that young.
I gotta say, this is going to come off weird. You might might be upset with me.
There's no weird question. I'm honest to God.
I don't envy you. I'm glad I had a childhood.
Yeah.
Even though dysfunctional family and all this.
All right, I'm out of here.
I'm glad that I wasn't immersed in this business so early on.
Yeah.
And that I had friends to walk around our little neighborhood and cut through yards and drink out of garden hoses and catch fireflies and play wiffle ball in the backyard and be a kid.
Yeah.
And kind of get lost and just get into mischief. And it just seems like you didn't have that.
I did actually, but you have that and the job on top of it. Like I had summer camps and I had my buddies and I had my running around back alleys and I had all of that.
Okay.
But and so it's, to be fair to my parents, I think they thought I had a normal childhood, but applied on top of that was I was on Broadway and I was doing 8 shows a week, including 2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday and 2 on Wednesday.
How old were you here?
I was on Broadway from age 13 to age 17 every day.
Wow.
And then I was doing shows before that and auditioning all the time and all that and I was doing commercials and theater and stuff from like 10 to 13. So that's that's applied on top of the normal life. It's like you have this life and then you have that thing on top of the life. So, to your point, like I think what saved my sanity was that I had that alternative life, but the stressors of trying to manage both are very intense at that age.
Yeah.
And will bite you on the ass on some level. It's just inescapable.
Do you think kids, when you start acting at a young age, it's beneficial in some ways because is there a lack of that sort of anxiety-ridden thing that we get as adults? The older we get, we care more. We're obsessed with being great. We're like, when you're a kid, you sort of let things go. That's why you see some great child actors that are just awesome. And you're like, how do they do that? Like the Joel, what's his name? Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Or Jodie Foster or Elijah Wood or, Henry Thomas. I think that I wouldn't presume to speak for anyone else but myself because everybody's different. But I think that for me, I actually had a love of stage, which is why my parents let me do it at a really young age. I was dancing. I mean, my parents were dancers, but they were modern dancers. So they weren't in the industry at all, like at all. But I loved tap and I loved theater and I loved being on stage. And I'm really young. I got on stage at like 5, 6, 7. So, and I was taking dance class at 3, 4, 5, 6.
Gosh.
So I was like all singing, all dancing. And they were like, oh my God, we got to get out of his way. And so they didn't want to not let me do it because I loved it so much. And that's different. Like when I talked to other kids, and I made a documentary for HBO called Showbiz Kids.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of kids for that. And there were some, who were just all singing, all dancing, and it made sense. And like, if you're their parent, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But it's a lot for the parent if once you get into, if you have some success. And so to answer your question, I don't know how much it matters. I think that for me personally, my trajectory, I was on Broadway. I got hired by Yul Brynner. I was like working with very high end people very young, but I didn't start studying intensely until my early 20s. Like I had actually almost finished my career before I was like, okay, now I want to really study. And
wow.
I'd gone through film school even. I was like, no, I want to work with like really high end method people. And
you went to NYU.
I went to NYU for film. I didn't study acting at all at NYU.
Wow.
And so I came out and I was like, I just want to train. And I just started training even when I wasn't acting professionally. So I kind of rebuilt my own craft later.